What's up, YouTube, and welcome to my video of the games I picked up in the month of August 2018. This month I didn't really do a whole lot of travel. Most of the games I bought I either found locally or bought online. Really all I did was I spent about a day and a half in Chicago for a work trip, and also got a couple games at MoGameCon, which was here in my backyard in St. Louis. So it was nice to go to a con that was local to home. Didn't really find a whole lot there, to be honest, but I'll show you the games and stuff I picked up there as well. So go ahead and kick this off and show you some weird stuff I got this month. Really, there's not a common theme, although some of the things I found were pretty obtuse. Some things I had been looking for and some things I just found that I didn't know I was looking for and decided to grab anyways. So the very first thing I got was great ice hockey for the Sega Master System. Probably saying, why are you buying a stupid sports game? This one, there was a unique reason I wanted this game. So one thing about this one is it is actually a little bit difficult to find for the Master System Complete, which this one is. And I don't know how well you can see that, but if you zoom real close in, it says Sports Pad required. So I had a reason to get this game because I found the Sega Sports Pad. This thing. This is a very, very unusual trackball accessory for the Master System. So couple things about it. It has your standard trackball piece here. It is not very accurate whatsoever. Has a few switches on the top. It will let you switch between analog mode, which does not work for much at all, or D-pad mode, which means you can actually use this for other games. And then it has actually turbo switches on it, which was pretty ahead of its time for when this came out in 86, 87 or so. This is a very thick accessory. I mean, it is hefty. So it has a nice feel on the table. I wouldn't really want to keep this in my lap as I'm playing. But did a little research on it. There's only 3 games that this technically supports in full analog mode. That Great Ice Hockey, which actually requires it. Sports Pad Football, which is very rare for the Master System, especially Complete, which I don't have. Which is honestly just an adapted version of the crappy Great Football meant to work with this thing. So nothing really great. And then the other game that optionally supports this is Great Soccer for the Master System. So the reason they called it the Sports Pad is literally the only games that were designed for it were all sports games. It does work for other stuff though. So I did some experimenting with this. I played the Marble Madness port for Sega Genesis with it. It doesn't really control too well with that. I couldn't really even make it past the 3rd stage just due to the limiting factors of the lack of preciseness with it. Also downloaded the Japanese Mega Drive version of Marble Madness because it's completely different than the US version. I just was curious how it would work with this thing. I'm not like an emulator or anything like that. It's not my typical style, but it really didn't fare much better. It pretty much glitched out in about the same spot that I couldn't get past just due to lack of accuracy with this thing. So while this thing is a unique accessory, kind of different, it doesn't really work that well. And I don't know, just kind of a curiosity for the Master System set, but thought I'd show you guys. Another another Sega thing I got this month that I was totally not expecting to find was a complete in-box Sega Nomad system. I actually already had a Nomad, but decided to buy this one complete. I'm going to try to sell my other loose Nomad now that I don't really need it. And just a neat box to add to the collection. I've always wanted one of these in the box. I remember when Toys R Us was blowing these things out back in the day, and I never jumped on it. So I'm kind of kicking myself for that now because they go for a lot more. But really nice to have this. The other thing that made this a great buy was I asked the people at the store to take it out of the box for me and let me see the condition of it. And it had a little surprise inside the box, and that is the official Sega Nomad pouch, carry pouch. I wouldn't have thought this was anything special. I looked this up on eBay. This silly pouch goes for like $100. I couldn't believe it. So that said, I went ahead and purchased it. I don't know if I'm going to keep the pouch. I mean, like I said, I probably would like to turn this into $100 rather than just have a pouch I'm not going to use. Because the Nomad isn't anything but really it's not really that portable of a system. So just an interesting curiosity. A lot of weird Sega stuff coming in this month. So with that said, here's another oddball Sega thing. I found the Sega Tunes soundtrack CD for Comic Zone. So apparently there was a set of 5 of these soundtrack CDs to Sega Genesis games of like the 93, 94 era. This is the only one that had, I think, like original music on it. The other ones were more just game soundtrack music, I believe. This is the only one I have. Wasn't really planning on collecting these or even keeping this, but actually I listened to it and I really like it. Very just grunge-style music of the 90s with a kind of annoying singer, but honestly, the songs are really good. This would fit right in with pretty much your alternative music selection of the 90s that I was buying at the time, so kind of interesting that these got released, and now I'm thinking about maybe chasing down the other four, but this one's probably the most interesting one, and I think it seems to be like the most uncommon one, too. Or maybe it's just that everybody wants this one because it actually is pretty good. So, it has 6 songs that I guess are inspired by the game or maybe loosely were featured in the game, but definitely sounds a lot better on CD quality than on the Genesis cartridge. So, another odd curiosity for the Sega collection. So next I'm going to move into TurboGrafx stuff. This was probably my biggest TurboGrafx purchase month in a really, really long time. I don't know why. I wasn't really chasing this stuff, but it just kind of found me. Found a few things out in stores, a couple things at the GameCon, and also bought some things online. So, very first one of these, actually, I didn't find in any of those places, I just remembered. This one came from a local flea market, and that is Chu Man Fu, complete in the outer box. So it has the case, manual, and everything inside as well. This is probably one of the hardest to find early TurboGrafx releases. I don't know why this one is rarer than the other ones, but I've been wanting this game for a while. I don't necessarily have to have the outer box when I collect my TurboGrafx games, but this one just happened to have it when I found it, so I was very happy to get this. This game is really fun. I got pretty addicted to this game. I've been playing it a lot. It's very easy to find on the PC Engine. It's called B-Ball, so if you just want to play this game for much, much less money, that's another way to do it. It doesn't have like any text needs, so I would say it's very easy to play that version. But this game's really fun. I don't know, it's just a puzzle action game. If you like games like Kickle Cubicle, this would probably be right up your alley, so definitely enjoying that. Speaking of puzzle action games, this is another puzzle action game I got for TurboGrafx that I'm really enjoying, and that is Crater Maze. This one it has a ton of levels. The one thing I'll say about it is it seems to be kind of easy, at least to me. I think I sat down and started playing, and next thing I knew, I'd played like 30 levels and maybe died once or twice. So maybe I need to crank the difficulty setting up a little bit. But also have another very fun puzzle game. It's loosely based on an old arcade or Japanese like computer game, I guess, that got a Game Boy port called Hyankyo Alien. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Basically the same game as that, but jazzed up with the new lick of paint for the TurboGrafx. So, fun game, and in my opinion, kind of underrated. TurboGrafx game I got at MoGameCon was this one. This is Drop Off. I've owned the Japanese version of this on PC Engine for years, and actually I really enjoyed it, so that's why I thought, I'll just go ahead and get the US version. I might sell that one off. But to be honest, this one doesn't hold up as good as I thought it used to, so maybe my memories were a little bit shaded on that one. Basically, it's an Arkanoid-style clone with the theme of demon possession. It's a very wholesome game. Really unusual in that you use the paddle type thing and ball to knock out the demons in the game, and you turn them into fruit. So I don't think any of that is really conveyed by this awful US artwork on the cover, but the Japanese cover is actually much better. So anyway, that's Drop Off. The other 3 games I got for Turbo this month are all CD games. A couple of these are Super CDs, some of them are just regular CD-ROMs. And this one is Riot Zone. This one I have been wanting for quite a while. This was actually developed by Westone, the creators of Wonder Boy. And obviously I thought they could do no wrong, but apparently they can do some wrong. This game's not very good. I think the biggest flaw of this game is that the Japanese version of this came out in 1991, but the US didn't get it till 93. And if you think about what was really going on in the beat-em-ups genre of that time, those games progressed really quick around that era. So it does not hold a candle to something like Final Fight CD on Sega CD at all. Probably would have looked better in 91 before that came out, but yeah, this one doesn't really hold up all that well. Controls a little bit clunky. The soundtrack's good, we'll give it that, but can't really recommend this one unless you're just collecting weird Turbo stuff like I am. Next one I haven't played yet. This one just came in the mail, and this is Buster Brothers. This one is in really great condition. I love the Buster Brothers or Pang series, so I figured I didn't need this because I already have the compilation on PS1 that the arcade version of this is on, but it'll be nice to play just on the TurboGrafx, I'm sure. The interesting thing about this one is it was a seller on eBay that I guess just bought a storage auction. I don't know if it was as dramatic as like one of those TV shows like Storage Wars, but he bought a storage auction, or storage, I don't know, locker. That's the word I'm looking for. Bought a storage locker at an auction, and was flipping all the stuff that was in it. And apparently the guy that was selling, or that had all the stuff in the locker, had like a near complete mint TurboGrafx collection. So the guy is piecemealing the stuff off on eBay. He's got some really fantastic stuff, a lot of it way out of my budget, but it was nice to see this stuff come in such nice shape. Definitely a dedicated collector, and it's kind of a shame that his stuff got auctioned off in that way, but what are you going to do? This one was another one from that same guy. This is Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective 2. I hardly ever see this game. It doesn't really go for a lot, especially for one of the late TTI Duo titles. But this one, to me, could be kind of a sleeper in the future. I haven't played this one yet. I'm sure it's just crappy FMV, limited screen size detective stories, but I don't know. I might get into it. I kind of like some of those slow-paced games sometimes. So nice to get another one of these late TTI releases that isn't $500 like a lot of them are. So that's that. Next, I'll talk about some stuff I got for Sony systems. So the first one of these is something I'm kind of ashamed in my PS1 collection I did not own, considering how many games I have in that set, and that is Legend of Legaia. I picked this game up and put it down so many times in stores and places over the years, because it seems like the price is always just fluctuating a little bit too high, even though there's tons of these out there. So this one I got at a really good price, and finally pulled the trigger on it, and looking forward to trying it. I don't remember if I ever played this one back in the day. This one came out in that era when there was just a huge flood of quality RPGs, and I think this one just kind of got lost in the shuffle with all that. Next thing I got was one of my things I picked up on my Chicago trip. This one is the Pinball Hall of Fame Williams Collection for PS3. I already had this game on, I think, the original Xbox, but this is the only way, I believe, well, this and the Xbox 360 version, to play these games in HD, the original Williams Collection. I don't know if you've been paying attention, if you're a pinball fan, but there was all those Pinball Hall of Fame download packs that you could get for PS4. They all vanished due to, I guess, the legal rights to these Williams titles running out a couple months ago from the download services. And now, as a result, this game is going up in price. So I figured I better go ahead and grab it now before it's too late. I really like these pinball compilations, and I wish more of them were physical. It's a shame that a lot of them you can't get now that the downloads have vanished. So yet another reason why physical games to me are much more supreme than downloads. But very happy to get this in this collection. Next thing I got for a PlayStation system was for PS4, and this is obviously the new re-release, enhanced scrub of paint version of Shenmue 1 and 2. Big Shenmue fan. I played through 1 and 2 on the Dreamcast. As soon as they came out, I bought the European Dreamcast Part 2 because you couldn't get it in the US and all that stuff. Really loved these games back in the day, and kind of a pleasure to play them through again. That said, they really didn't do all that much to these games to bring them up to PS4 standards. It's a very light refresh. I'm not complaining. I mean, they look nice, but it's definitely not up to a modern game standard by any means. The one thing I will say about this collection, though, is very, very buggy. Very buggy. There are a lot of issues. I mean, I realize Shenmue is a very deep game. There's a lot of just quirks and little things that you can do to make make things happen throughout the days, but they really should have put a little bit more attention to this. So, for example, bought a capsule toy out of one of the capsule toy machines in the game, and when Ryo was holding it in his hand, it came up as just a totally blank item between his two fingertips. Then when I went back and looked at it in my collection, it was a mini Sega Saturn capsule toy, but that's not what showed up on the screen. So, very unusual, just some of the little things like that. Some of the buttons, like the visual of the buttons that'll display on the screen for QTE events, sometimes they just disappear. And just, I don't know, little things like that are really annoying. That said, I'm putting a ton of hours into this. I've already just about beat the first Shenmue again, and I probably will move on to the second one and play through it again because I really like this series. So I'm happy this came out, but I really wish it was given a little bit more love and attention that it deserved. Next, let's talk about some stuff for Nintendo systems. I got a couple complete-in-box Game Boy Advance games this month. First one of these is Advance Wars 2. I got this home and put it on the shelf and realized I don't even have Advance Wars 1. I never bought it for Game Boy Advance. I have the ones on DS, I guess, only. So kind of looking forward to playing this, and then I'll probably end up going back and trying to find the other one now, because I've always heard good things about this series, the earlier titles in the series. So looking forward to checking this out. Another one I got this month that I've been looking for a really long time and ended up finding locally was Boktai 2. Solar Boy Django. Definitely like this Boktai series a lot. First game is a lot of fun. It has that strange light sensor in the cartridge, so there's events in the game that you have to go outside or inside to make things happen differently, and this one is very similar in the way it works that way. So, cool Hideo Kojima game that doesn't get talked about a lot, and this one is very, very difficult to find complete, so I was very happy to get this month. Another portable Nintendo game I got is a complete Lost in Blue 2 for Nintendo DS. This was the last one of the 3 DS series ones I didn't have, so now I've got the set from 1 to 3, and haven't really put much time into these, but I've always heard good things, so maybe I'll give this one a shot. Last thing I got for a Nintendo system, and the last game I got this month, was the Kamen Rider Dragon Knight for Nintendo Wii. This one has been spiking in price a lot lately, and I kind of slept on it in the first round when I saw a few out in the wild in years past, so I decided I better go ahead and grab it now that I found one cheap locally before it's too late. So, just a fighting game is my understanding. It's supposed to be decent. Not really into the license for any reason, but maybe if the game's solid, I'll give it a try. So, that is all the games I got this month. I'm going to show you some other things I got. I picked up 2 NES manuals at MoGameCon I didn't have. First one of these was for Supercars, and the second one of these is for one of my favorite racing titles on that system that doesn't get a lot of talk. This is Formula 1 Built to Win. If you want to play Gran Turismo on your NES, this is the game for you. It has a ton of car customization long before that became a very standard gaming practice. So I had to think that that game was inspired by this in some way. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but I really, really enjoy this game, and it's a sleeper for the NES. So decided it'd be nice to have the manual for it. Last thing I got this month is a big stack of magazines. Game store I went to was selling off a bunch of 90s game magazines pretty cheap, and I bought a couple online just because I was kind of in magazine mode. So I don't know why I've really been going back and reading a lot of these, looking at a lot of the vintage game ads, and also reading about games that never came out. Plus there's been some interesting game coverage for arcade titles in these, as well as Japanese titles we didn't get as well. So a few of these are, I guess I should say the majority of these are EGMs from kind of the early to mid-90s. So some of these are pretty early and a little bit difficult to find. The first one is from the NES era. This one's for Battletoads. Then we have, I don't even know what game they're trying to highlight. Some of these early ones, I think they just had kind of generic sci-fi art on them, and it was just supposed to represent the games. So this is one of those. I don't even know what game it's really promoting, but another early NES era title. Then we're starting to move more into 16-bit era ones. So this one is for Ninja Turtles 3 on NES, but it also has some 16-bit stuff in it as well. This one is another one that's kind of early 16-bit era. Another thing you notice about these EGMs is they really start to get thicker very quick. Now we've moved into peak SNES, Genesis, and Turbo era. So we've got a Star Fox FX cover, or sorry, Star Fox with FX chip cover. This one was a weird one to me. The Bram Stoker's Dracula with some like red foil on the cover. I've never seen this issue before. And that game was a complete flop, so it was very odd that that made the cover, but kind of interesting. A lot of those TurboGrafx games I got this month, I saw articles and reviews on those in these magazines, so it was kind of cool that that all timed out the way it did. This is for Aero the Acrobat, another like early-ish 90s. This one's getting a little later. This one is Virtua Fighter, I believe when it was first an arcade game, maybe starting to be talked about, brought to the Saturn. This one's Mortal Kombat 2. And now we've hit peak phone book era EGMs. Look at how thick this magazine is. It's crazy. Like, they don't make magazines like this anymore. This is the Doom 32X version, I believe, is what this one was highlighting. But this one probably isn't even the thickest the EGMs got in that like 94, 95 era when there was a ton of systems to cover and a lot of ad revenue supporting it. This one's for Mortal Kombat 3. Then we've got a Mortal Kombat 3 and Street Fighter Alpha issue. This one is an EGM 2, which was kind of like their Cheats and Codes magazine. Just like a best of year issue. This one's also really thick. Then I got some Game Pros of that era. This one's for the original Street Fighter Alpha. I've got another early Game Pro here for, is this Bart vs. the World? Yeah, Bart vs. the World NES. Another odd title for the cover, Universal Soldier. This one got, it's like a Genesis version that's actually really good. It's based on the Turrican series that they just put a Universal Soldier character on it. And then it also came out on Game Boy, and I think that's it. Maybe there's a Super Nintendo version, but I don't think that game did very well. Then we get into probably the most interesting stuff of this whole stack. I found some very early Die Hard Game Fan magazines, and I really like those magazines. These were really fun to read. These were very, very early issues. This one is like issue 4, I believe. It's for Blaster Master 2 on Sega Genesis, another very low-key title. This one, just, I don't know, really nice import coverage. You could definitely tell the quality of screenshots they were using was above their peers of their time. But man, some of the graphic layouts in these is really wild. A little bit hard on the eyes. This one is for Cool Spot, I guess, or one of the Spot games. I don't know. But yeah, another early issue, maybe like issue 7 or 8. And then this one was for Street Fighter 2, another pretty early issue, issue 11 or something like that, I think. And then the other one I got was off eBay. This one is way later. This is one of the final issues of Game Fan. This is for Majora's Mask. This one, the seller kind of ticked me off. He said it was in good condition. I get it. It's got like pages and things cut through, like cutouts and things like that. Pages ripped up. It's not at all in good condition, in my opinion, for a magazine. But what are you going to do? So that's all I got this month. Like I said, a lot of Turbo stuff, a lot of weird magazines, and just oddball releases I wasn't really expecting to go for. Hope you enjoyed this video. Please take a moment, like, comment, subscribe, let me know what you think, and I will talk to you soon. Have a great day or night, wherever you are.